I'm joined now by Douglas Smith. He's a former Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
5 years after bin Laden's death, how strong is al-Qaeda today simply?
I don't think it's as much how strong al-Qaeda is. I think it's the legacy that he left and the disruption he left. By the killing of bin Laden, they created this tremendous power vacuum in the world of terrorism. And that's the challenge we're facing now. Al-Qaeda, as we knew it 5, 10 years ago, very, very different animal than what we're dealing with today.
It certainly claimed responsibility for the Charlie Hebdo attacks, obviously, and also many killings in West Africa.
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen is they have changed their tactics. I mean, bin Laden's tactic was to take down the U.S. economy. And as tragic and horrific as the deaths were on that day, the real price we paid was the economy. And that was always his plan. How do you bring down the U.S. economy? What we're seeing now is just a tactic of widespread terror. They don't really care as much about disrupting the economy as they do about disrupting the way of life.
Bin Laden had a pretty sophisticated pedigree, his background. He wasn't your average terrorist, and he knew what he was doing in 2001.
No, absolutely. But I think what we've seen with ISIS is they're also pretty clever. What they're doing with social media is truly impressive. They have realized they need to adapt, but they also realize they need to diversify their leadership. They're not as tied to a single person. They've created these cells. We saw this just most recently in Europe, the way they were able to take those attacks out. They're not waiting for a single guy to say, go do this now. They're given a big picture plan and then execute as they see fit.
There have been so many splinter groups and so many people inspired by ISIL, certainly. But let's talk about Osama bin Laden a little bit more. Why was he not simply captured and brought to trial?
Well, I think that's the big million-dollar question. There were a lot of people that believe in the immediate days after 9/11, they had pinpointed his location in the mountains in Afghanistan, and we didn't push at that point. And as a result of that, he then went into hiding. And it was a lot of very courageous, unknown people sitting in basements all over Washington who pieced that intelligence together year after year after year to ultimately lead to that. And I think that was a very tough call for the president. He had to make a decision between going in there in force, putting tremendous numbers of U.S. soldiers' lives at risk, or going in for the kill. And I think a lot of people would agree that he made the right choice at the time. It was really the only choice he could make. The risks were just too great to do it otherwise. I think in a perfect world, they brought him back to the U.S., they put him in a trial, but I think it was unrealistic at the time, particularly given where he was holed up, to be able to carry out that mission.
We're talking about ISIL and how they've certainly been empowered by al-Qaeda and have filled this vacuum. Do you think today that anyone would have imagined that this group would have been a splinter group of al-Qaeda and would have taken on with the force that it has?
I think that's a tough call. It's so easy to be that Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
I think these guys have just shown an ability to adapt. And it's sort of that game we played as kids, whack-a-mole. Mm-hmm. As you knock one down, another one pops up. And I think that's what they've been so clever at doing. And I think the challenge is how do you build a sort of a world unification against them? How do you get everyone from Russia to Iraq to Iran and all parties in between realizing all at once what a threat they are to civil society? And once that happens, we'll be able to have a greater impact on them.
Douglas Smith, always great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.